Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is the look I did today. It's a dusty mauve kind of plum color with some glitter. If you want to see how I did this, please keep watching. Behold. So I'm going to start with my Fenty primer, and I also have one from Tarte, which is the poreless. This one's a little thicker. I use this one where my pores are bigger, so like my cheeks right here, my nose right here, and my chin. And the rest I just use the Fenty primer with it. Now I'm just gonna go in with my Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Soft Matte Primer. I'm just gonna get this on the general areas of my face. Now I'm gonna go in with my Tarte primer. This has a little more filling to it, so just the places where my pores are a little bigger. I'm going to set and prime my eyebrows with Fenty Beauty Brow MVP. I really like this product because it has this really fine spoolie that's kind of like a toothbrush. It gets the really small hairs, kind of like setting your baby hairs. You want the toothbrush instead of like a comb or a spoolie. I really like the texture of this because it's thicker and it sets my brows better than brow gel does. I know a lot of people are using like eyebrow soap to lay it down, and this is very similar. So now I'm just going to go in with my Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz pencil. I use a lot of different products on my eyebrows, but lately I've just been feeling the eyebrow pencil as opposed to the Anastasia Dip Brow, which is what I was using before. It was a pomade that I would just use with an angled eyeliner brush. That's working with more of a wet media, and I noticed too, like after a few weeks the product kind of dries out and it's harder to work with. So the eyebrow pencil is just a little more consistent, and it's a little more of a softer look if you're into the more fluffy brows or hairline kind of strokes. The way I draw on my eyebrows kind of changes on a weekly, daily basis as well, but I always start on the bottom so that I make that line and the arch, and it's easier to line up the bottom hairs, I guess. So after I make the bottom lines, I'll try and draw the arch. I guess it just depends on the day. I don't know why sometimes I do the arch, or sometimes I'll start at the line that's directly above the bottom one that I just drew. So that's just where I'm going to start today, is right above that bottom line that I just drew. It's kind of hard to guess where to start drawing. I kind of just have to eyeball it because I don't have a lot of hairs towards the inner corners of my eyebrows. So basically, just after I pick a starting point, I'll just draw a line that kind of goes in more towards the end, so it has more of a tapered shape to it. I just clean as I go with my fingernail, just taking and putting color where I need it. It's easier to do with the wax already set, and it's also easier to see where my eyebrows already are and where I need to fill them in. So it is kind of work building up the product on top of the Fenty Brow Wiz, just because it is that kind of waxy texture. So you just have to build it up and work it into the brow. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of product towards the inner corners of my eyebrows, just because I want the ombre effect, and I'm going to blend it out. Now I'm just going to take my Fenty concealer in shade 185 and my concealer brush, and I'm going to use this to clean up around my brows. I like to put a little bit of product on this brush because I just washed my brushes last night. So usually my concealer brush is a little flatter when there's product on it, and I feel like the less fluffy it is and like pressed it is on the end, it has more of a precise line. So I don't know, when they're fresh, I just like to put some concealer and then kind of like flatten it so I get a really straight line. So now I'm just taking my flattened concealer brush and using my concealer to clean up around the edges to make a straighter line. You can take the excess product and just blend that into your eyelid, just so that it looks a little more natural and not just a hard line underneath your eyebrow. Now I'm just going to take my Fenty foundation that I'm going to use for my whole face and just put a little dab of it on my on the back of my hand. And I'm just going to take that instead of my concealer to outline the upper part of my eyebrow, just so that I don't have like this light halo around my eyebrow. So I use the same color as my skin tone on the top and then a lighter one underneath, because I do use a shade or two lighter on my eyelid just to prep for eyeshadow, so kind of like a primer. Okay, now I'm gonna go in with my Fenty foundation brush. This actually came with the foundation and the primer as a, I guess, like a package deal. But I actually really like this foundation brush because it's really dense and it's also thin, so I can get in between here without wrecking my half an hour's worth of eyebrows. So now I'm just gonna try and be very careful to get around my eyebrows just so I don't accidentally erase anything with the foundation. Like I mentioned, it's really thin, so it's easy to get in between and then to meet up with the product you already had put down above the eyebrow. Now I'm just going to prep my eyelids with the concealer. The concealer is just going to serve as a base for the eyeshadow, so it has something to grip onto, so you don't need a lot so it doesn't crease so much, but just so it gives it a little texture and kind of matches the rest of underneath your eyebrow. Now I'm just taking my mini concealer brush from Real Techniques, and I'm just going to blend the hard line from where the product is into my foundation that I just set. So it's just kind of giving it more of a faded and blended effect. Before I go back in with the brow wiz, I'm just going to try and drag any of the product to where I need it. And obviously it wasn't enough, so I'm just going to add a little bit more with the pencil. I'm just taking a little bit of translucent powder and a powder puff to just lightly set the concealer that I laid on my eyelids, just because it's starting to crease a little bit and I don't want all the color to stick where the concealer has creased. So I'm just going to blend it out a little bit with my fingertip and then I'm going to add the powder. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with my eyeshadow. I'm using the palette Modern Renaissance from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I just set this, I prepped my eyelids with my concealer and then I just lightly set my crease right here just because my eyes are really hooded and my concealer will start to crease right away. So I just have to set it a little bit. I like to just do it on the concealer because the color sticks a lot better, but the way my eyelids are set up, no, I have to use some of the translucent powder. So the first color I'm going to go in with is Tempera. And this right here with my Morphe brush. I'm going to take a new brush and I'm going to go in with the Buon Fresco shade from my Modern Renaissance palette, and I'm just going to blend that into the transition shade that I just set. I'm using very light and small circular motions just so I have a very blended and airbrushed effect, and I also hold it far away, like towards the end, so that I have less control. Using a new brush, I'm going to use the shade Mercury from my Subculture palette, and I'm just going to lightly and very precisely lay it and just very carefully blend it so that they don't blend into each other, but just so that there's not a hard line of color right there, just so they seamlessly melt into each other. Now I'm just going to go back in with the Buon Fresco color with the same brush that I used. I want to keep the brushes separated just so that the colors don't start to kind of mud up. So just use the same brush for the same colors, and it's just going to be a lot of back and forth in between the shades. There's really no one way to do this. It's just if you see one color kind of starting to disappear, just go ahead and go back in with the previous color and just blend over it. Taking a new brush, I'm going to go in with the shade Antique Bronze from my Modern Renaissance palette, and I'm going to pack it onto the eyelid. Next, I'm going to go in with the shade Rowdy from my Subculture palette, and I'm just going to start blending it from the outer corner of my eye. And then I want to just very, very lightly start to hollow out my eye with it. I just want to add a little more depth to the crease of my eyelid, just so the glitter really stands out. Now I'm just gonna go back in with Mercury and kind of just blend it out a little bit so it's not as deep of a color as Rowdy was. And then I'm gonna take the brush that I used with Buon Fresco and I'm just gonna put that over the Mercury shade. This little set here is my Stila glitter in Magnificent Metals, and this is in the color Metallic Rose Quartz. And here in the strapper it came with a little primer, so it's not really like glitter glue, but just something to kind of liquefy the glitter. So I'm just going to take a kind of firmer brush and just take a little bit of the glitter and add it onto the primer that I had set into the little mixing dish that it came with. And you can really do anything with this. You can make it a more liquidy consistency, like a glitter liner, or you could pack it on as like just loose glitter. What also seems to kind of keep the glitter onto the actual brush is to spray a little bit of setting spray on there, just so that it has a little bit of product to make it tacky. The primer dries up pretty quickly just because it's not really a glue. Like I said, it's just kind of to dilute it and to make it into the texture that you want to work with. So I would recommend in between grabbing more of the glitter off of the dish is just giving your brush a little bit of a spritz so that the glitter sticks. Now I'm just taking my Tarte Pro Clay Paint Liner, and I really like this eyeliner because it has the texture of a potted eyeliner, and it also spreads nice and evenly like a liquid eyeliner would, but it dries a little more pigmented and it's a little more put when it dries than it is a liquid liner would be. I like to put eyeliner on my upper waterline as well, just so that the eyelashes look a little more blended and natural. I'm going to just curl my eyelashes a little bit, and then I'm going to go in with my Lash Barb Cosmetics eyelashes in the style Mini Lucky. I like to use a darker eyelash adhesive just because it blends really nicely with your upper eyeliner and it looks natural, so you won't have a clear glue line if you look down, or won't have to touch it up. I do anyways just to make the line a little straighter, but I really like the Tarte brand eyelash adhesive. It is a long wear eyelash glue, and you definitely need an eye makeup remover to take this off just because it's that good. It'll stay on if you just are using wipes or water. It definitely keeps the eyelashes on there, but it does take a little while to get tacky, and the first one I had sliding around a little bit, which is not good because I already have my makeup how I want it. So just make sure you're letting it dry a little bit. So now I'm just taking my Lancome mascara and I'm going to apply it to the bottom of my lashes. This seals your eyelashes to the false ones so that it gives it more of a natural look. Now I'm just taking my liquid eyeliner pen. This is the brand Hank & Henry in the color Blickety Black. I really like using this pen when I'm doing a winged eyeliner just because it has a really, really pointy tip and it makes the wing really sharp. And I'm just going over my lash line so that it gets the line straight and it also gets the eyeshadow off of any of the glue that it's stuck to. Here I'm just using Sex Kitten on my bottom waterline. This is Cover Fix and it's just a green color corrector, and my Fenty foundation in Soft Matte in the shade 210. And I'm just going to take my Real Techniques Beauty Blender and I'm just going to dab that into my skin. Most of the time I do use my beauty blender. I go back and forth between the Real Techniques one and the actual beauty blender, the original one. But honestly, it just depends on the day too, because some days I use my foundation brushes, be that the Fenty one, or I have a few IT brushes that I like to use for foundation. But lately, and I also noticed through the winter, I use my beauty blenders to blend in my foundation just because my skin is a little drier, and this just helps press the foundation onto the skin without moving the skin underneath it. So if you have a dry skin type, this might be a better option instead of the foundation brushes, but I will make other videos where I am using my foundation brushes for my foundation application. I also think it's important to note that you want to bring your foundation down into your neck, past your jawline, just so everything blends together seamlessly. I'm also super extra, and I'm taking my foundation brush and I'm just getting into the creases by my nose, because when my makeup starts to kind of break up through the day, that's where it'll start, is like where my nose meets my cheeks and underneath. And I also have pores that are pretty visible on the side of my nose if I don't actually stamp the foundation in there. And I'm also just using the brush to also get closer to my bottom eyeshadow, just so I don't move any of the product, but also make it look like the eyeshadow melts into the foundation. Before I do any of the lip liner, I'm just gonna kind of take my foundation onto my lips so that it's also just a seamless blend from my lips to my foundation. Now I'm just taking the same brush that I used for the color Rowdy in the Subculture palette, and I'm just going to take some of that color and I'm just going to blend that into the color that's already there. I wish I would have used a thinner brush just because this one was a little thick, and I usually don't take my bottom eyeshadow that low, but it's okay, it's just kind of a smoked out look. But usually I like to have the first color to use as a halo or transition, but this kind of covered it, but it's okay, we'll just blend it out. I'm kind of all over the place because usually I'd like to do this before I do the bottom eyeshadow, but I'm just going to do my highlights with my Fenty concealer, and I'm just going to take that under my eyes, the bridge of my nose, my chin, and my forehead. You can add concealer to highlight any areas that you think are dark or you want to take them out. So any point where the light's going to hit it first is where you want to put the concealer, just so that it brings those features out a little bit. After I'm done blending everything together, I'm just going to set it with my powder puff and my Mercier translucent powder. I want to do this right after I'm done blending, just so nothing has the chance to crease or settle into lines that I don't want them to. So immediately after I'm done blending my concealer, I lay down my setting powder. Now I'm just going to lightly set around my eyebrows, just because it is a little glossy from the Fenty Brow MVP that I use to set my brows or lay them. It's kind of like that waxy, glossy kind of texture, and I just want my whole face matte, so that's why I'm putting powder anywhere that looks a little glossy or where I don't want things to move. Now I'm just going back in with the Buon Fresco shade so I can add that halo like I had mentioned, so it's not just the dark color but kind of blended from darker closer to my bottom waterline and then lighter out. Like I said, I don't usually take it this far down, but I really wanted to achieve like a smoked look, and I wanted to keep the Buon Fresco as my main color. I'm just taking a large powder brush to dust off my excess translucent powder. I just lightly bake, but I didn't want anything extra, anything that's gonna wash out my face, so I'm just gonna blend everything together. Now for my deep contour, I'm gonna use my Hoola Matte Bronzer from Benefit Cosmetics. I really like the shade because it's more of a mink than it is a warm brown, and I'm kind of a neutral skin tone, but I feel like this is a pretty universal shade if you want just something really natural and really light. It's easy to build this color, so this is why I want to start with just something in between dark and light. By starting with something that's not as intense, you can always build the product, but it's always hard if you put too much to take away and go lighter without adding more product. So it's just a good rule of thumb to start with something that's light and then just build up the color. If you need a shade darker, you can always go for a darker shade in your contouring palette, which I do usually use the Lorac in the color Light palette, which has about 3 shades light and 3 shades dark, just so you can go lighter or deeper in between the shade that you're trying to achieve, and also you can just build up the color. I get really OCD when my lighting's bad because it looks like one side is darker and one side is lighter, so I'll tend to build product up more on one side. But it's good to have light that's coming from the center of your face or from in front of you, just so you get equal lighting on both sides. Now I'm just gonna do a light nose contour with the same bronzer that I used for my cheeks and my deep contour. I don't know the name of this brush, but I kind of just like showing them just because we all have different brands and we all have similar ones, just maybe not the exact same one. So if you have a brush that just kind of has a more accurate tip to it, like a tapered from the center where it has kind of a point to it, would be really good for this. I'm pretty sure this is just an eyeshadow blending brush, but it really just gets the straight lines that I need for my smaller contours, like in between my chin and my lip and my nose. Now I'm just going in with Dallas Blush from Benefit Cosmetics as well. I always put blush on my nose just to kind of give it that sun-kissed look. Where the sun would normally hit your skin is where I think the blush should go, so I always put a little bit on my forehead, on my cheeks obviously, and then the tip of my nose, and it also just lightens the contour. Now I'm just going to take my Morphe blush brush and I'm just going to kind of overlayer it over the deep contour that I have on there just to soften the line and to get a little bit of color on my cheek, but I do want to do something a little more pink. So I'm going to go in with the Ulta Beauty blush in the color Nude Pink, and this is just going to give me more of a flushed look. Now I'm just going to take another small eyeshadow brush and take my Jouer Cosmetics Molten Glow highlighter and just dab that into the inner corners of my eyes just to lighten it up and make my eyes look a little bit more spread apart. And I'm also going to put them underneath my eyebrow onto my brow line. For this look, I just wanted to put a little more highlighter on the bridge of my nose just to define it a little more. Now before I put lip liner on, I just wanted to give my lips a little more volume and to add a little more moisture just because the winter hasn't been real easy on my lips. So I'm just going in with the lip injections from Too Faced, and this is the Extreme. To be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of this lip gloss at first just because I wasn't used to the burning and the tingling. But if you're looking for just a little bit more definition, then I would highly recommend this. Now I'm just going to go in with my Lancome mascara one more time and just get my bottom eyelashes just to give my eyes a more open look. Sometimes I don't use the bottom mascara if I'm doing more of a cat eye type of look, but with the smoky eyeshadow I just wanted them to really pop. Now I'm going to go in with my NYX or NYX Suede matte lip liner in the shade Brooklyn Thorn, and I'm going to start on the bottom. I like to slightly overline my lips, so I just start from a little over my Cupid's bow and a little under my actual lip line, and then I bring it in to the inner corners of my mouth, just so that it has more of a natural look. Once you have the lip liner in place, now you just want to fill it in with the lip liner. I had to take off some of the lip gloss just so the lip liner would stick and kind of give it a semi-gloss kind of look. Once everything's all filled in, I'm just going to go back in with some of my concealer and the same concealer brush, and I'm just going to go around my lips and clean everything up. Now I'm just going to take my Charlotte Tilbury setting spray and I'm going to set everything in place. And this is the final look. Thank you everyone for watching. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks.